I have two articles I want to bring you today that I am convinced are of prophetic importance of the first level. The first one coming out of the National Interest, which is entitled Peace in the Middle East, America's New Post-Iran Deal Challenge. Now, as I've said in the past, that I believe that there are going to be two phases to this deal. The first one has already been established, which is the peace deal that was established earlier this month with Iran and the P5+1. Now the second phase begins. And that phase is to bring aboard the moderate Arab states and the nation of Israel. And as you know, the Bible does say in Daniel 9:27 that the Antichrist would eventually bring about a peace with many. And I believe this very well may be the second phase of the peace with many. Now, how long it will take in order to bring that to fruition, who knows? And even though the United States has said that they would talk with Israel and try to calm their nerves, but there would be no incentives involved, that simply is not going to be the case when it all comes down to it. It is my belief that at the end of the day that it will not be the United States that will bring the peace, but it will be a leader out of the European Union. But it will have the backing of the United States, who will play its part in this multinational army or military force that will make sure this peace process is confirmed. Now, certainly Israel is not happy with the situation at all. But I think as time goes on, I believe that Israel will have to be flexible with what the reality is. The reality is that Iran does have a deal with the P5, and there's really not much they can do. Certainly, many would say, well, Israel could attack and destroy their nuclear program. But unfortunately, that simply is not much of an option, seeing that the ramifications of the international community, especially the United States, would be extremely costly for Israel, who does have to play the game of the international community. Yes, if it was up to me, I would say Israel go and destroy their nuclear facilities and their nuclear infrastructure. But Israel is a part of the international community, and they want to be. So even though we as Christians think differently about this situation, and we would prefer that Israel would just go ahead and attempt to destroy Iran's nuclear facilities, as a nation and leadership that is not under the leadership of the Lord Jesus Christ and is still in blindness, that's simply not going to happen. They're going to play the international game. But that day is coming, the Bible does say. In fact, the Bible speaks prominently about that in the latter portions of Zechariah chapter 12 through 14, where Israel will finally cry out to God, and in the end, He will save them. Now, certainly this will all take place in the latter part of the tribulation period. But as I said on my last video, if you have not been getting or going to my website and looking at my daily news articles, you should be doing that, because that gives you an idea of what's going on every day in the world of Bible prophecy. So as the international community is beginning to gear up to try to convince Israel and the moderate Arab nations that their security is still complete and is a number one priority of the P5+1, here is also what's going on within the European Union. And here's an article coming out of the Times of Israel, and it's entitled EU to pitch new formula in bid to jumpstart peace talks. And the subtitle says Mogherini proposes international support group for Israeli-Palestinian negotiations, will explore plan to get initiative off the ground in coming weeks. Now, certainly she's not bringing the peace process to its knees. That will be taken care of by the Antichrist when he does rise. But the point I'm trying to bring about is that the U.S. is no longer a part of the peace process, at least not in the driver's seat. They may be in the passenger seat, but they're no longer in the driver's seat. The EU has now taken over that process. And this is something that I have been saying for years, and I think that we're now finally there. It says the EU said Monday it will explore setting up a new international format to breathe life back into the stalled peace process between Israel and the Palestinians. But the bottom line is there's no amount of life or breath that the EU is going to be able to inject into this peace process until the Lord finally, the timing is finally right. So whatever plan the EU foreign minister does come up with, it will, like all other plans, flap in the wind until the rapture of the church takes place and the advent of the rise of the Antichrist comes to pass. But anyway, this plan is the brainchild of the 28 foreign ministers in the European Union. It says the idea of an international support group is one that we will explore in the coming weeks. We will come back to it once I have discussed it with regional actors, she said. But I have a feeling that this is going to merge into a security plan that the European Union is going to bring about to both the Israelis and the Palestinians. And I have a feeling at some point in time that it's going to merge with the Iranian deal. So one thing you should keep in mind is that both of these plans are going on at the same time. And the ultimate plan has not been come up with yet. I leave that to be the plan that will be what the Bible talks about in Daniel 9:27, that will come to pass once the rapture of the church takes place. So by no means am I saying that this is going to take place in the next couple of months or even the next year. Certainly it's going to take time, and how much time we simply don't know. But if you're looking for anything to point you in the direction of the rapture of the church, these two areas are definitely foreign policy events that I would certainly be watching. And as you know, I will keep you up to date every step of the way. Now here's something that may be interesting as well. It says Mogherini rejected suggestions that the proposal could undercut other peace efforts, including that of the Middle East Quartet of the UN, Russia, and the United States, and the EU. Her comments were echoed by the EU foreign ministers, who said in a statement that securing a just and lasting peace will require an increased common international effort. Now, she plans on getting back to the international community in September, but that's the reason behind that is because in the next sentence it says French Foreign Minister Laurent Fabius said earlier Monday the peace process was effectively dead and Europe had to help the two sides find a way out of this conundrum. As many of you may know, the French are also proposing in September, and very well may be, recognizing Palestine as a state. And if that happens, a snowball effect could very well take place. So in order to try to head off that possibility, the European Union as a whole is going to try to see how far they can take peace and push it forward before that takes place. And here's something that also that is interesting to me. It says last month Fabius suggested that a new group, a sort of Quartet Plus, should be considered. You know, anytime I hear something like that, it makes me think, well, is that going to be the process in which the 10 nations are formed under the Antichrist? Going on with the article, says he said including Arab states would make sense based on the 2002 Arab peace process or initiative, which calls for an Israeli withdrawal from the West Bank and East Jerusalem in exchange for a full normalization of ties between Israel and the Arab world. Mogherini has repeatedly urged Israel and the Palestinians to resume peace negotiations based on the two-state solution, saying the situation on the ground cannot continue, and I agree. And I think most of the international community agrees that it simply can't go on the way it is. At some point in time, the U.S. is going to recognize Palestine as a state, which is going to set off a firestorm in the UN against Israel. And you can bet that sanctions are going to be next. And when both economic and financial and military sanctions do kick in, Israel really won't have much of a choice after that. But, you know, I do believe that will go both ways as well. I think that the Palestinians will also be forced into this peace process. And I think begrudgingly both of them are going to sign a peace process as part of what I believe is going to be a greater umbrella deal. It could possibly, I believe will include Iran, but possibly Syria as well. And if that would be to be the case, then you might as well include Yemen as well. Because I think that the world actually believes that so goes the Middle East, so goes the peace and security for the rest of the world. The question is how long are we away from that? No one really knows. You know, if you don't have my Tribulation Period Survival Guide, I would recommend that you get a copy of that. There's a free version and a paid version. For you who want to hand your lost loved one this copy, I would recommend that you get the paperback version. And you can go to the About section to go to my website and pick up a copy of that. But this book is important not because it gives you good survival tips for the tribulation period, but because one of the first things it suggests and recommends strongly is that the person who's reading it needs to come to the Lord. That's one of the first things that it talks about early on in the book. So this book is just another way of promoting salvation for your lost loved one or friend. I make a point of giving this book away as much as I possibly can to lost friends and loved ones that I come across. So I would recommend that you get this copy as quickly as possible, because your time may be running out. And you who are not saved, who are listening to this video, you need to come to the Lord as soon as possible. 150,000 people die every single day. The Bible says that the vast majority will end up in a burning hell. Don't let that happen to you. Forget about the tribulation period. Forget about the rapture. You could die today. So get on your knees and cry out to the Lord now and ask Him to save you. And start living for Him from that day forward. Well, this is Terry Malone with the Calvary Prophecy Report.